Thank you very much for coming here today, and really thank the members of the hall, contributors. I truly believe this is the greatest museum of sports in the world. And it's historic, but it's also so brilliantly run, and your contributions and your enthusiasm, very, very important to maintain it and make it what it is. I don't really need to introduce these people, but I will, because just in case someone slept through the weekend. Randy Johnson. John Smoltz. Pedro Martinez. And Craig Biggio. I think all these gentlemen have heard me say that I consider this the most exclusive club in sports. You can't buy your way into it. You can't be born into it. It's all about achievement, respect, and greatness. And I'm just curious to start off with, for each one of you, when you're going to these events with so many of these Hall of Famers, for each one of you, was there someone that you either met for the first time or just sort of talked to for the first time and said, wow, I'm a peer of this guy? Randy?
Maybe not for a first time, but maybe it was a second or third time. But, I've known Tom Seaver and Nolan Ryan for a long time, and to be able to be in this environment with them now was completely a different environment when I first met them. Whitey Ford at a dinner a couple of nights ago. I met Whitey when I played with the New York Yankees, and he came and sat down next to me and just talked about pitching, and I just thought it was great to see these gentlemen, these pitchers that I've looked up to, now in this environment at the Hall of Fame. It was a completely different experience. So that's what I really took, and that was my joy of meeting some of the players that I got to meet.
John?
For me, when you idolize a team growing up and then you get a chance to be in a locker room, you're in awe of just a Major League Baseball player. And that's the way I was getting drafted. But then when you're in a group like this, you never think you're ever going to rub elbows and be able to speak. And now knowing you're going to be in this group for the rest of your life and seeing that these are the icons of our sport, whether it's Sandy Koufax or whether it's Johnny Bench. I mean, I was spoiled in my organization with Hank Aaron and getting a chance just to pick their brains. But the way I look at it, it's like I have entered a group that as long as I stay on the bottom, I'll be fine, because everybody else in front of me has done a lot. And I just got a chance to see their genuine you could almost tell that each one of them, in a weird way, was reliving what we did for the first time yesterday, because they all had to do it. And they had such a great appreciation. Even though we get some kidding and ribbing, it was fun, but they gave a lot of good advice along the way.
Pedro?
Well, for me, it was a great experience to have the opportunity to see the cream of baseball from the past, from the previous years, from this year, this class. To me, it was so humbling to actually have the opportunity to come in with this class, these gentlemen here. But also, it was a moment of pride for our country. We waited 32 years, probably the longest out of any other country, to get another Hall of Famer. But I couldn't help it. I wanted to see and sit down by Nolan Ryan and Bob Gibson. Also, having the opportunity to be with Don Juan Marichal, who I never saw growing up playing baseball. I could only read and learn about him. But now, sitting by them, it was like I was collecting cards again when I was a kid.
That's great. Craig?
I don't know if there was one guy in particular, but other than all of them, to be honest with you. And for me, it's still I mean, you think about the Hall of Fame and you think about, Mr. Aaron, Nolan Ryan, Yogi Berra, and, you think of those guys as the Hall of Famers, and it's still a little difficult to put grips on that we're one of those guys, and, because you kind of view those guys as they are the Hall of Fame. And now to be able to hang out with them and sit at a dinner and get made fun of and by guys that you idolized and worshipped, and to wear this Hall of Fame on our chest is, I mean, it's cool. So I enjoyed the whole moment. I enjoyed, being around, being part of this fraternity.
Did each one of you get a special feeling when you stood in front of your plaque?
Well, yes, I got to think so. I'll go first. I mean, I think that, the plaque is, I mean, when you walk in that building and you start looking at all the history of the game, and I mean, I grew up in a small little town in Kings Park, New York, and not too far from here, and, 5'10" and a half, kind of, you and I are pretty short, and, if it could happen to us, why can't it happen to anybody else? And to have yourself have a plaque up there, man, that's pretty cool.
Well, for me, made me think about the long journey from the shack that I grew up to almost not signing a professional contract, to then end up in the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. It made me really reflect a lot on how destiny is written. And going in this class of this year, it's unreal. It's unreal to think that all three of us were subject to trades early in our careers, and that destiny has us 1, 2, and 3 together. For you, Beach, was different. I don't know that you spent your entire career with Houston. But for us, somebody got frustrated along the way and gave up on us. And to then see your plaque hanging out there in the biggest Hall of Fame of all for us, I don't know, it made me reflect so much. I went back to running after a tire in my backyard, playing with doll's head. I reflected on all those things. I don't know. It was great. It was a weird feeling.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. That quadrant will be forever linked together. And that plaque, we were all the same height. We all had the same hair. Pretty cool.
So I guess you have Jerry curls. That's gonna be your next wig, the Jerry curls.
It's just been a special weekend for me. I've been here since Wednesday with the other three, and I think what really makes it special is, and when it really clicked into me and I got goosebumps, and it was, induction day was yesterday when we were taking the stage and seeing all of you fans here. The parade was outstanding. This for me, it's all about. I played 22 years, and as Pedro said, someone gave up on us. Well, there was a few teams along the way with me that I don't know if they gave up on me. Maybe they just weren't patient enough. So for me, it's really more about all the people and the fans that I've gotten to pitch in front of, and all the different teammates. Craig's had a lot of teammates, but it's all been on one team. Well, the three of us have had various teammates because we've played on a lot of teams, and those are special moments, and I try to make it special for a lot of different people throughout the course of my career, and I think that's really what I take from it. I mean, we've all had our moment of success and fame, and to really be on the biggest stage now, sharing the moment with family and friends and fans, are really a great way to kind of have the closing chapter of my career.
When you see the Tom Seavers and Sandy Koufaxes and Johnny Benches, all the players that come back, and they come back almost every year, does it make you appreciate even more the want to come back here when friends of yours are brought into the Hall of Fame, or just be here on this weekend each year?
Well, it does for me, and everyone knows how much I love golf. And if they move the American Century Championship a week back, I'm gonna be here every week because that's what it means to represent this group. And it's gonna have to take an act of God to not physically allow me to come here because there's so much appreciation for what they did in the game that you want to, not that you can repay, but that you want to make sure you're in a position to welcome and continue the tradition that this great hall has and what it represents. And believe me, I think all of us will speak the same way. It's a joy to come back here and experience this. It really is.
Do any of you think of players that you played with? You kind of think last night, boy, I hope this guy makes it in the next 3-4 years. Like I read about David Ortiz weeping watching your speech, and he said, boy, it would be my dream to be able to be with Pedro in Cooperstown. There are guys that you look forward to seeing or just hope they make it so you can be there at their size?
Of course. In our case, we have guys that I think, have the legit numbers and have the reputation of being guys that were clean, something that we had to battle through during our careers. Vladimir Guerrero is one example. I think Vladdy has the numbers to become a Hall of Famer. For the Dominican Republic, we only have yesterday, two of us inducted into the Hall of Fame. So I'm anxious to see, and I don't want them to come yet. I'm only waiting for Vladdy because Vladdy doesn't play anymore. But I want David and Albert Pujols and Adrian Beltre to continue to do what they're doing. But I'm so looking forward to seeing them in the same Hall of Fame and not have to wait 32 more years to see another one come in. I think Vladdy is gonna make company to me and one very soon in two more years, hopefully.
And for me, I mean, obviously, it would be the guy that I played next to for 15 years, and Jeff Bagwell. Yeah. He was an unbelievable and incredible player, offensively and defensively, and I think that hopefully this year, with the removal of 4 guys on the ballot, and he can start trending for the voting percentage-wise. Obviously, you get pretty good at the percentages when you miss it by 2 votes. So. But, hopefully with the removal of 4 gentlemen here and get him trending in the right direction, he's pretty close. So how special will that be, Houston, to have another celebration for next year?
Well, for me, I mean, obviously this is such a unique opportunity. I can safely say, I think in 2 more years, or whenever it is, 2 or 3, Chipper Jones will be here. But I also think there's great cases to make for Freddie McGriff, and we all know about Dale Murphy and what he represented in the organization in the game of baseball. So if I had a wish, Dale Murphy's so special to me because I looked up to him when I got to Atlanta. Very few people that you meet measure up to what you think, and he exceeded what I thought. And for Dale Murphy and winning MVPs on a team that didn't get a chance to do what we did, he was the class of what the Atlanta Braves are all about, and being half of that person was what my desire was to live up to that. So those would be those people.
Well, a teammate of mine texted me last night at our dinner, and I think you all know who he is, and he will be on this stage with you next year, and that will be King Griffey Jr. But along with him, when I played in Seattle, I played with King Griffey Jr. and Omar Vizquel, who I felt like was probably the most underrated shortstop in my era. I saw him do things with his hands that I've never seen any shortstop do. And I know it's more about the complete game, but he was a magical shortstop out there. But the person that I would like to see get a little bit more consideration is the best hitter that I ever played with. And I played 22 years, and the best hitter that I ever played with, and I've said this before, is Edgar Martinez. And I know there's a lot of talk about, should he get in or shouldn't he because of a DH. But I just hope that they look at the numbers and see really what he did, because he has comparable numbers to people that are in here that maybe played a position longer, and that's what got them in. So
I completely agree. I mean, I also remember what it meant in 1995 for all of you were playing together. And there's a serious question about what was going to happen to baseball in Seattle.
That team was moving. If we had not had the 95 season in Seattle, the Seattle Mariners were heading to Tampa Bay. There was a lot of political and baseball unrest, and I don't know all the parameters, but that was the year, 95, that kept the Diamondbacks there and inevitably started working on getting a new ballpark down there 3-4 years later. But the team inevitably was on their way out of town, and that year saved the franchise to stay there.
That was an amazing time. It was so deafening in the Kingdome in that series. It was really dramatic, and it was a great deal of fun. I also, you probably don't remember because your concentration level was fairly high. Well, I remember following you around from ESPN, and you're doing this. I'm a warrior. I'm gonna prove I'm a warrior. It was this great. I'll find the video sometime and send it to you because it's hysterical. Because it was, and I had so much respect because you were so serious about that whole thing of proving that you're a warrior.
So that's why all the Hall of Famers picked on the three of us and not you. They're still afraid of you.
Let me tell you something. He had 11 starts with us, and when it was game day, get out of his way. It was a man. I mean, he was intense, fired up, and it was his day, man, and it was impressive to watch.
Well, Bitch, okay, you played with him, and then you had to hit against him. Yeah. So, I mean, having been hit 285 times in your career,
how many times did I hit him? Did I hit him?
You never hit me. I was hoping
somebody
you did.
get me a ball right now. Let me hit him.
I wanted you to hit me. I was 0 for 16.
Somebody get me a baseball.
Was there a little bit of a fear factor?
Never. I never stood in the box and was afraid of of a pitcher throwing at me or hitting me. I mean, goodness gracious, you're hit 285 times and never missed a game because of it, and that's just luck. I mean, I just purely was lucky because of that. But again, I mean, facing somebody like Randy, hopefully if he was to hit me, he'd hit me in the leg or the butt or something like that where it wouldn't hurt as bad.
Or I hit him in that big pad that he had on his elbow.
Yeah, that would okay. That's all right.
Because Pedro had some great moments, like when he had 2 outs in the 9th inning with a perfect game, and you hit Reggie Sanders and he charged the mound.
That's what happened when you're small. That's okay, Randy. I'm a small unit. A small unit.
I actually do remember a time, though, you were playing the Indians, and a couple pitches back and forth. And I don't remember who was pitching for Cleveland, and who he buzzed for the Red Sox. But you then hit Roberto Alomar right in the rear end, and he actually gave you a motion like thank you. I asked him after the game. He said, "Yeah, I was thanking him for doing the right thing and hitting me in the right place."
Oh, that was Charles Nagy happened to give up a homer. Right, I think it was in the 7th inning, right around there. We were pitching a pretty good game. And he went over and dropped Offerman. Offerman was the one that hit the homer. And his next at bat, he drilled him. So I just said, I went up, and I remember Joe Kerrigan coming over and saying, Pedro, we're gonna leave it for tomorrow. We're not gonna hit anybody today, so please stay in the game. We need this game. And I looked at him, and he goes, "Oh, Ramon, can you please tell him to not hit someone?" And I looked at the lineup that was coming up, and I saw Roberto Alomar, Jim Thome, and Manny Ramirez. And I stood there, and I thought, they got my second baseman because he hit a homer. I'm winning the game. I'm in the 7th inning. If this is not good enough, then I think we're not going to have a pitcher on the mound because I'm going to hit this guy. and Ramon came up and said, well, bro, they said that they don't want anybody to get hit. And I said, bro, tell them to get someone warming up. And that's what I did. But I did it the right way. I did it in butt cheek, and he was okay.
Having covered all of you and known you for some time, one of the striking things that you have in common is your competitiveness. And I'm just curious how much all four of you looked at one another when the others were playing and thought about how competitive they are. And I know, Pedro, you did face John on the mound, so.
Well, and I was actually, I remember right after the 95 season, I was still finding my way to through pitching. And these guys, the Atlanta Braves, were at the time the guys to see. You must see. Your must-see ticket was the Atlanta Braves. And I was, I remember starting the 96 season, I went to the office and I said, Felipe, is it possible that I get a chance to face one of the big three from Atlanta? Just whenever they pitch, can I try to be, even if I have to give away my day off, normally you have a day off in between. If I have to give up my day off just so that I could face one of them. And it actually turned my career around, because that same year, 96, I ended up making it to the All-Star game, my first All-Star game in Philadelphia. And I got to see them warm up. I'll be the first one on the top step if I wasn't pitching to watch them pitch, but to learn from them. Like I've always said, I'm a little patch of a lot of pitchers. I'm a patch of Maddox's head is something I copy from Maddox. How quiet he kept his head to the target. I wanted to have legs like Roger Clemens. Use my legs like Roger Clemens. And I'm putting mechanics together here. I'm trying to get a curveball like John Smoltz. Get the bite on that curveball. And I wanted to have the finesse of Tom Glavine. And I was able to, later in my career, put all those things in display when I ran into the situation. I was powerful. I had good mechanics. I had a quiet head. And I was finesse when I needed to be finesse. So all those things helped me out so much. And the All-Star game in 96 was the turnaround that led me to 97, winning the Cy Young and taking it away, actually, from Mad Dog.
Well, it was me. I won it in 96. Took it away from me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was you, 96.
But you didn't take it away from me.
But in 97, I did take it away because he was the one competing with me. So
I competed against, obviously, everybody but Randy. And I seen Randy my whole career, because in the minor leagues, he would be in the same league, and it was this most intimidating guy that you could imagine. We talked about earlier, his competitive fire, and I watched Jeff Blauser hit a line drive off his wrist. He thought he broke his left wrist as his pitching hand, and unfortunately, you went in and broke the other wrist because you punched something. But I could just see, what he was going to turn into. That fear factor, and he was using it to his advantage in every way possible. Competing against Pedro brought out the best in you, because you weren't facing really him, but you kind of knew you weren't going to get much. And we had some great epic battles. And I think as a competitor, you always wanted to compete against the highest and the best. For Craig Biggio, it was a pleasure to compete, and obviously in the same division, because you knew it was about execution. Who was going to execute? He was going to do whatever it took. And I love that. And when I compete against people, I want them at their best. I don't want to have an advantage. I don't want to have something where they're hurt, and I always loved playing with those guys. And it would have been a unique blend, because we would have fit in real well, because everyone has a mutual respect for the guy that's leaving it on the field. And not everybody does that. We know that. Not everybody put on a uniform leaves it on the field. And all of us up here have that common bond with that. And I have such admiration, because even though numbers are what they are, when we competed against each other, it's that you're going up against one of the best, and they're going to do whatever they can to beat you in the right way.
I mean, the competitiveness, I was a hitter. I didn't like either three of you. I mean, I don't care what your work ethic was. I had my own problems to figure out how to get a hit. Obviously, I was trying to figure out how to get a hit. And, I mean, I did okay against Pedro, okay.
Oh, very
I'm sorry.
very okay.
I did okay.
Oh, took advantage of the rookie. Wackity, whack.
Johnny was so-so, and Randy didn't go so well. So, but respect, the utmost respect for these three guys that are up here. I mean, obviously, when you talk about baseball, one of the things it's the underlining rule in baseball, the respect factor. It's, you know, when you punch a guy out, it's not disrespecting him. You know, when you hit a home run, you put your head down and run around the bases, and you know, and that's the biggest thing for guys that play in the big leagues, and the competitiveness and having those juices, and when something positive happens, to not disrespect the game or disrespect the guy that's on the mound or the batter. That's what a pro does, and that's who these guys are.
Can any of you talk about what it's like? And John, I mean, I think of, you know, you're going out on the golf course with Maddox and Glavine, so, but can any of you explain to people how you could compete with teammates who you want to win, but you're still competing with them?
Yeah, I mean, we had a unique blend, right? Personality-driven. Maddox, Glavine, and I checked our egos in when we come in the locker room. We knew we were going to see a potential great game every time, and if you wanted to be the guy, you were going to not be the guy. Off the field, we had such a common bond in golf. We spent time in a cab, in a car, and we talked baseball. We picked each other's brain. I made the mistake of trying to be like Glavine at one point, which I couldn't do. I got my brains beat in one game, but we all were unique. And we blended a Steve Avery, a Charlie Lee brand. Everybody that came in fit the mold, and we had a blast. Times have changed a little bit. You don't see that as much. Moving parts, free agency, all the different things, financial. But I can't think, and I'm sure Tommy and Greg would say the same thing. We played 21 years because we had something away from the game that didn't eat us up. We relaxed. Golf was it. I think certain places get it wrong. I don't care what free agents' money was being thrown at me. If you didn't let me play golf in my off days, I wasn't playing for your team. And that was the blessing of playing for Bobby Cox. He understood what made each guy tick, and he knew that if he could leave them to their responsibilities, that there wouldn't be an inner workings. We never had a problem, really, if you think about it, in our locker room. We had 3 simple rules that never existed anywhere else. Some of them did, but this one rule, we had no music in our clubhouse. Think about that for 21 years, no music.
That wouldn't go over very well with me.
But
Hey, Johnson, put your headphones on.
that's right. That's what he would say, because he didn't want any influence or anything to bother someone from their taste or dislikes for something. So we had a unique opportunity to grow up in the game, loved each other, fought for each other, and at the end of the day, you know, we have that common bond.
Randy, you and Pedro both pitched on World Champions with Curt Schilling. And I always wondered, in no negative way, but just when you were both at height of greatness, and he was great as well, was there a little bit of a competition factor with Curt?
You know, I suppose in a good way. Probably more so when we went to go play golf. And but I was kind of I had my horse blinds on, and I was pretty focused when I left Seattle and got to Houston, and I was doing my thing by that time in Arizona. Where we benefited from was I've never been in a rotation like John's been in, where you got 2 other perennial Cy Young Award winners. You know, I've been in good rotations, but I've never had the luxury of being able to feed off of somebody else. And to a certain extent, yeah, it was nice to be able to not be that, have so much burden, if you will. You know, if there was a 4-game losing streak, you know, try to end it. And sometimes you put a little bit more pressure on yourself to try to be that person that your teammates are hoping Randy's pitching today. Well, that's a lot of responsibility, and you know, but having Curt there, it helped, sure.
And Pedro?
Well, for me, I'll tell you what, I have to give him a lot of credit. By watching what he did previous to the game, even though I was on my program, I knew what to do. By the time we got together, I was already a veteran with a very established routine of doing things. He'll pick my brains a lot about different things, how I'll backdoor, front door, and stuff like that. Talking baseball, pitching in general. But I'll tell you what, I learned also that by just doing your homework and being prepared for a game, for an opposition, you can also get a huge advantage. And Curt Schilling is one of the best I've seen at preparing himself before a game. He was a student of the game. He will have that little notebook in the middle of the dugout, and he'll be writing stuff for the next outing and things that he did, sequences that he followed. I have a lot of respect for the way he went about it, and I did benefit from some of those things. But what a pitcher when it counts. That's one guy that I will probably be honored to hand the ball to in a game that really counts. When it counts, if you ask me if I want Curt Schilling or Derek Lowe in my team, I'll just hand out the ball, and I'll be equally as happy.
There are some things from this week. For one thing, John, I didn't know you pitched here as a teenager in this ballpark.
Me?
Yes.
Yeah, I actually I was on the junior Olympic team. I don't think I physically pitched on this ballpark, but we played the Australian team here. And then down the road in Albany was the first time I got a chance to wear a USA uniform and compete against Cuba and Chinese Taipei. And it was a pivotal point for me because I was drafted in the 22nd round. For whatever reason, I drifted, and everyone knew I was going to go to college, and maybe it was draftability, signability, who knows. But I had a little chip on my shoulder, and I competed in the greatest events that the summer had to offer. And the Junior Olympics, seeing other countries and seeing what they had to offer and play against Cuba and pitch in a gold medal game was something that prepared me for not only getting a chance to sign with the Tigers, but seeing outside of your own area. And so getting to watch a game here was so unique. It happened so fast. And then getting a chance to pitch against Cuba in the gold medal was special.
And Craig, one of the things that's fascinating about this week, there have been two things that have dominated this weekend. One is just the incredible response to Pedro from the Dominican Republic. But the other thing is, and Friday night as I was walking down to the hall, I said to one of your owners, I don't think I've ever seen a Houston Astros shirt on this street, on Main Street in Cooperstown before, and almost like 3/4 of the shirts in that. And by 7:30, they had sold out your shirt. But
Thank you. Love you too.
what does it mean when you see? I mean, you've been there for many years. You've raised your family there. What does it mean when you see a city and what people have thought is a football town respond around your coming here to Cooperstown?
Well, that's a great question, Peter. I mean, it's we're on the map now, right? We finally, Houston, we got a guy in, right? So, and I think that they're proud of that. Just like we were on this journey together for 20 years, and be able to see the turnout of the fans that we have in Houston and see the turnout that we had yesterday is very overwhelming and really cool and deserving. And I think that I take a piece out of today is that we did this thing together, and to be able to enjoy it together. Like I may be the first Astro in, but all the guys that ever put a uniform on, we're all in now. You know what I mean? The fans, we're all. So to the fans and everybody that came up here for the journey, it's not easy to get here. It was really cool, really special. Before I
go through some of the questions from the audience that I have here. One thing I'd like to say is just the human element of being here and being in my position, being fortunate enough to know these four men. I guess I'll start with Pedro because I've been to Monte Guayabo a few times with Pedro and wandered the streets and the churches he built, the school, the athletic complex with a daycare center because he so respected what his mother did in raising the children. I mean, John with his foundation, Craig. I mean, I don't even know how many years you've been doing this, but it's so great. And Randy, just knowing all you do, you care so much about people. I mean, you mentioned the young pitcher at Ohio State who's sick. I remember what you did for Ryan Westmoreland, who was probably the best prospect the Red Sox have come up with in 10 years, who had a terrible disease and had to stop playing baseball. Randy not only visited him in the hospital in Phoenix a few times, but I believe you went up to Providence to see him there. And all of you, what you've given, I mean, okay, baseball has been good to you, but what you've given back to baseball in some ways is even more remarkable and more admirable. It's something that everyone in this audience should respect. It's a great thing for all of us who love the game. This is my 44th or 45th year covering baseball, and it gets better all the time. But to know that, to see what people do to make the lives of other people better makes them far greater than just being Hall of Famers, and there's no such thing as just being a Hall of Famer.
Well, you know, it's pretty cool that we all were given a uniform. We've all been given stats. And but that's only going to last so long, right? Uniform's over. Stats are cemented in this great place. But we're all given a platform. And that platform was something some unjustly given. But I look forward, as do these guys, of utilizing that platform in a way that will last longer than our playing careers. And that really is what matters most to me. The Roberto Clemente Award to me is the most prestigious award that I could have ever won, representing baseball in a way that he did for his country. So I don't know if this maybe still on, but that's something that'll last forever. And you can only win it once, and this obviously is a great honor. But each and every guy's been given an opportunity to do something, and more people than you ever recognize in the game of baseball do it, and they do it behind the scenes. And I've been blessed in a city for 25 years, as Craig has been in one city, to bring light to a lot of causes that maybe ordinarily would have never had an opportunity had it not been for that great uniform that we wore with pride and with dignity. So even though there's no more uniform, there's an opportunity still out there that each one, and Randy has been so blessed to do what he's been doing. It's pretty cool.
Well, we have some questions from the audience. And the first one is from Michael Lalonde of Houston, Texas, and surprise, it's for Craig Biggio. What is the greatest moment of your career?
Well, it's a good question. I think there's two answers to this. I think it's one was the 3,000 hit, being able to do it all with one team in one city, and be able to have it happen in Houston, in our own ballpark, and just see the excitement and euphoria and the fans and doing that ride together. And then the other was really, it took me 18 years to get to the World Series. And I think it didn't go well for us, but I think, those two events being part of it. And the World Series was really special because, I really didn't understand the significance of it until after the World Series was over. And really anywhere you went in Houston, you had so many people patting you on the back and saying, hey, we want to thank you. And you're like, well, we lost. They're like, no, I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime. And then all of a sudden it hits you and you're like, wow, this is the big picture here, and how grateful people were for, hey, we just got beat. Maybe we could have pitched a little bit better, but it wasn't in the cards for us. And, that was something that those two events I'll never forget.
Excuse me, Peter. My mom's leaving. Mom! Have a safe flight back to California. I love you. You too,
love
Kath.
You too, Mama.
We all love you.
Remember, he's my brother from another mother.
I'll see you later, Kathy. Love you. Okay. Continue, Peter. I'm sorry.
No, that's.
This is your show, right?
Well, actually, the next question is for you, Randy. It's from Zach White of Saratoga Springs, New York. And
Zach, where are you? There you are. All right.
the question is, what advice would you give a young teenager who wanted to develop his pitching style?
Well, you might want to ask Pedro or John because I'm kind of the abnormal height for pitching. And as John said yesterday, kind of freakish. All I can say is we all have the same mechanics. We all have the same objective. I have maybe longer limbs, more moving parts to keep under control. But the main objective is to stay collective and your head on the target and work at these small little detailed things. And the biggest thing in pitching, which was the hardest thing for me, was to be consistent. And that was because of my height. Until I finally got my consistency, I wasn't the pitcher that inevitably I became. But just work hard, extremely work hard, and stay focused at what you have to do and have fun. That's the biggest thing. You got to have fun. I've always had fun doing what I've done. Thank you.
This is for Pedro from 8-year-old Rafael Martinez from Riverside, California.
Is that my child? Rafael, ¿dónde está?
He wants to know how you throw your changeup and also how you learned it.
How did I learn it and how I throw it? Oh my God! I wish I could just skip this one, but I'm gonna answer it because I don't want to see him throwing changeups yet. When you're 16, I'll probably take a ball and guide you through it. But I used to throw a circle changeup. It's hold this way in your fingers, and it's actually the pitch that helped me excel a little bit in the big leagues. Along with the fastball. But you're not going to have a good changeup unless you have a good fastball. The fastball makes the changeup effective. It was taught to me by Guy Conti. Previously, I used to throw a full wrap changeup, which was almost holding it with all your fingers and then letting it go. And Guy Conti suggested that I'll switch the grip on it. And it worked out great. But guess what? I learned it after I was in baseball, in professional baseball, and I had a healthy fastball before I started throwing the changeup. That's why I wanted to skip the subject. But now that you ask, I answer. But don't try it at home. Not yet.
This is from Russell W. of Greensboro, North Carolina. It's for John Smoltz. What was one of the best pranks you ever pulled on Glavine and Maddox?
I want to know, too.
Well, we had a kind of unwritten rule with each other. We weren't going to do things that created any kind of animosity, and we'd have fun with each other. I think one time, Glavine didn't talk to me for a week. I knew how much he was battling, how much he was pitching hurt. The year he won the Cy Young, he had a cracked rib. Nobody knew it. And, he was getting a lot of treatment. And we used to sit together all the time in the dugouts, and we enjoyed that. I was the clown, Maddox was the professor, and Glavine sometimes didn't know if he was happy or sad, which is what made him really good. But we sat next to each other, and if we didn't, there was something wrong. Well, Glavine had a lot of treatment he had done, and he didn't make it out to the dugout for quite some time. And so I took a whole roll of tape and made arrows from his locker to the seat where we would sit. And he got really upset about that and didn't talk to me for a week. So, and it was all in good fun, and we got over it. But the best prank that I've ever been part of was one where 4 in the morning, get in on we got an off day in Chicago, and of course I'm excited because I'm playing golf. I never slept on any flight, so even though I was only going to get 2 hours sleep, I knew I was going to play golf in Chicago. So the bellman left his post to get all the bags that come in. And so I just seized the moment and took over the stand, and every player would call to ask for their bags. I came up with some British accent. I don't know why I went British. And I just jacked with every one of them. I said, I completely was rude. I hung up. I did things that you would never imagine a bellman do. And a matter of fact, it got so bad with one of the players, he asked if a place was open to get something to eat. And I said, no. I hung up. I called him back. I said, I apologize. I'm overmanned. I can't handle all this down here. Can I call you a cab? And I badgered him, and he said, no, it's fine. I said, just, sir, can I call you a cab? I owe that to you. After about the 4th time, he goes, okay. I said, you're a cab, and I hung up. So that 20 minutes was probably the most fun I've ever had until the bellman came and got really ticked at me when he found out I was doing it.
Well, that wraps up this. I appreciate all of you coming out here. This has been an incredible weekend. It really has. And for the greatest players I've ever been around, it's been one of the great weekends that I've ever enjoyed. So thank you very much. And I hope you've had as much fun as I have.